When I spoke up 2 weeks ago, the fact that there were no RFA1 black-owned dispensaries open on day one of recreational sales in the state of Ohio, got tons of calls and had to go to battle with the state. For me, it's a little unique in the industry I'm in now just because I can't borrow money. It's still federally illegal. So there's no borrowing money. So in the most recent endeavors, it's been, okay, everything I make is going right back out the door because I have to pay in cash. Or it's, okay, banks shutting down accounts because they know what you do. And I'm like, okay, you're engaged, even though I myself, and if you come in, I can help you pick out what you want, but I can't ring you out because then I would be engaged in a federally illegal activity. And so then even just the expenses of the business, I can't expense a vehicle. I can't expense my labor like a normal person can because it's no different than drug dealing until they finally reschedule. So myself, security are the only people who can count as a traditional employee. So we have a completely separate tax code than every other American business. So it makes it a whole lot more difficult. And then for the first 2.5 years, you can pay in cash. There was only two banks in the state that would take dispensary money or cannabis money. Ironically enough, one was on an Air Force base. But so those expenses in the industry make things more difficult. And I think there's always been a taboo with cannabis, even though it's intertwined into American history. I mean, the Betsy Ross flag was made of hemp. It was one way you could get out of going to World War II was the Hemp for Victory Act, but we pretended like it hasn't been good for America. So those difficulties, but I think us being medical first has helped because of how many people we were helping really improve quality of life, end of life treatment. Has made it difficult, but there's always the things that everybody else has spoken to are there for all of us. It's tough to get into the room. It's tough to have a qualified voice in those rooms. You wonder if it is because of the quota. In some cases, is it we don't value you as a minority, but we value your money. So that's another thing that comes into it. And I understand that I'm in a unique situation where my socioeconomic status that I've inherited and then earned insulates me a little bit. But there are a lot of people who can't speak up because of the financial impact if they do. I've been very fortunate by my industries. McDonald's isn't going to go out of business. People are always going to need medicine. So I can because, all right, what are you going to do? You're not going to shut down my business. You can't. But that's not the case for 99% of us. So they can't speak up and advocate for themselves in many cases because of the fear of the repercussions. When I spoke up 2 weeks ago, the fact that there were no RFA1 black-owned dispensaries open on day one of recreational sales in the state of Ohio, got tons of calls and had to go to battle with the state and then had to reach out to all of the allies. And they didn't realize because of, serving on the chamber and in other relationships, it's no, you can't bully this person. But there are 10 other stories that day where somebody has been bullied because they are not protected and they spoke up and spoke and advocated for themselves or someone else.
Now let's go back. Are you saying that on the first day, no Black-owned dispensaries were open?
So there were 0 RFA1 black-owned dispensaries. So all your original black-owned dispensaries who got licenses back in 2018, all of the OGs from 2018 who were the first in the state, none of them were allowed to open on day one.
Why not?
That's a question for Jim Canepa, Director Maxfield. Those are questions that they would have to answer. I don't like to argue intent. I'd like to defer to the math. And I challenge to give me a mathematical model that none of the original 60 dispensary operators, of them, none of the original black ones were allowed to open on day one. And then they're allowed to the day after.
So you were allowed the day after?
The day after. But the financial impact
Exactly.
and the PR impact of not being there on day one is huge.
Wow.
I could pay for a GM for a year just off of losing that day.